On 25 October 1854, near Balaclava in Crimea, a cavalry battle became a symbol of courage, confusion, and command failure. It still matters because it shaped how armies, governments, and the public understood modern war. The fight unfolded during the Crimean War, when Britain, France, the Ottoman Empire, and Sardinia confronted Russian power around the Black Sea. Balaclava was one part of a larger struggle over influence, ports, and access to the region. Before the battle, armies had already been strained by siege warfare, long supply lines, and disease. Victory or failure could depend as much on transport and endurance as on battlefield skill. In London and Paris, leaders wanted success without a prolonged, costly war. In the field, commanders faced pressure to protect the siege lines around Sevastopol, while also guarding the harbour at Balaclava. The commanders were experienced but divided by language, doctrine, and imperfect coordination. Their subordinates often received orders that were late, unclear, or interpreted differently under stress. The armies were built around infantry squares, artillery batteries, and cavalry charges that still carried old prestige. Yet the battlefield also reflected a newer age of rifled weapons, disciplined fire, and vulnerable supply systems. Morale differed sharply from unit to unit. Some men were hardened by months of campaigning, while others were exhausted, underfed, and unsure whether support would arrive in time. Balaclava lay on a narrow route between the sea and the siege works inland. Whoever controlled the approaches could threaten the harbour, the supply depot, and the Allied position above it. The weather added pressure. Autumn light, dust, and uneven ground made movement difficult, while distant smoke and the low ridges could hide intentions until the last moment. Russian planning aimed to disrupt the Allied position and seize opportunities created by the exposed valley. The Allied side expected pressure, but not every move was understood in the same way. The defenders relied on layered positions, infantry, artillery, and cavalry placed to cover the harbour and the approaches. Their strength depended on coordination, not just bravery. The opening phase began with Russian movement against outlying positions, drawing the Allies into a fast-moving crisis. Smoke, distance, and shifting commands made the first minutes hard to read clearly. At first, the action centered on the edges of the defensive line. Small units fought to hold ground, while commanders tried to understand whether the main blow was still developing. The pressure point came when the Allied center and right were tested under increasing confusion. A gap in understanding, more than a gap in courage, began to shape the battle. Nearby, the famous cavalry action was set in motion by an order that was understood too narrowly and passed too quickly. The result was a charge into a deadly corridor of fire. The decisive movement was not a single clash, but a sequence of misread signals and rapid decisions. Horses surged forward, artillery answered, and the battlefield narrowed into a moment of irreversible momentum. From a distance, the charge looked both heroic and tragic, because the men advanced under heavy fire with little room to alter course. Yet the larger story is one of command failure, not simple valor. On the flanks, artillery and infantry continued to shape the fight. The battlefield became a contest of endurance, where each side tried to hold its line long enough for the other to lose coherence. The charge did not produce a lasting breakthrough. Instead, it exposed the limits of cavalry against prepared guns and disciplined formations in open ground. As the action ebbed, both sides faced the same hard truth. Tactical success had been partial, but strategic confusion remained. The battle had not resolved the wider siege or the war. The immediate aftermath was marked by regrouping, counting losses, and trying to restore order. Officers reported events in fragments, while soldiers remembered the day as a blur of dust and noise. Balaclava quickly entered public memory through dispatches, illustrations, and later retellings. The battle became famous not only for what happened, but for how differently people described it afterward. In the years that followed, military thinkers studied Balaclava as a warning about unclear orders, exposed cavalry, and the importance of communication. It helped push armies toward more careful command systems. The battle also influenced how the public viewed war. Victorian audiences admired bravery, but they also saw how easily planning errors could turn courage into waste. Historians still debate the exact chain of orders and interpretations. The surviving evidence suggests not one simple mistake, but a series of pressures, assumptions, and imperfect transmissions. They also qualify the famous cavalry charge, noting that it was only one part of a larger battle. Its reputation has often overshadowed the wider tactical situation around the harbour and ridges. Some accounts emphasize heroism, while others stress the structural problems of command and logistics. Both views matter because battlefield memory often simplifies what was actually a complex event. The Crimean War continued after Balaclava, and the siege of Sevastopol remained the central struggle. The battle's main consequence was to reveal how costly and fragile coalition warfare could be. It also showed that battlefield reputation can outlast battlefield results. Balaclava is remembered for a charge, but its deeper lesson is about the systems behind the charge. Today, the ground near Balaclava is quieter, though the contours of the hills still shape the story. Visitors can read the landscape itself, harbour, valley, ridge, and the routes between them. The site invites reflection rather than spectacle. What remains is the interplay of geography, command, and human endurance, visible in the land even when the guns are long gone. Balaclava endures because it compresses the history of 19th century war into a single day: ambition, alliance, confusion, and memory. Its lessons still speak to anyone studying how armies fail and adapt. The battle was not only about one charge or one commander. It was about a campaign where every road, ridge, and order mattered, and where small misunderstandings could echo across history. For the men who rode, marched, and waited there, the day was immediate and personal. For later generations, it became a case study in the cost of imperfect coordination under pressure. That tension between lived experience and historical summary is part of Balaclava's lasting power. The battle is remembered through legend, but it must be understood through context. In that sense, Balaclava remains a warning from the past. Courage mattered, but so did clarity, logistics, and the ability to turn intention into coordinated action.